Hey guys, welcome back to another holiday card watercolor tutorial. If you missed the last video, I'm going to link it above, and I'm also going to link a playlist that contains all of my holiday card series videos from the past couple of years. So as usual, to get started, I've taken a piece of watercolor paper, cut it in half, and then folded that in half to get a card shape, and I'm just taping this to a firm board, just using painter's tape. This card is also going to be a more illustrated style card, much like my last tutorial. I'm going to include a link below where you can download a copy of the sketch that I've used so that you can trace it or copy it onto your paper to follow along. Just because I know that it's hard to see because I do my sketches in a light colored pencil. So click on the link in my description if you want to download that. So I'm just going to start by using indigo with a good amount of water, and I'm just going to start painting the sky area. The color palette for this one's going to be pretty limited. It's going to be more of a monochrome type color theme going on. So think blues and grays, and really that's all you're going to need. So I have gently wet the top area with a really light wash of watery blue or indigo, and then kind of intensified that color as I go along, and I'm making sure to use the very tip of my brush to outline those mountain shapes. I am using my Wonderforce watercolor brushes, and this is the number 10 brush, I believe. Sorry, no, this is the number 12 brush. And even though it's still large, you can see the nice fine tip that it has, which is perfect for this kind of project. So while that paint is still wet, I've just added in a little bit more pigment. So you want to let that top area dry completely before moving on to the mountains, because we don't want the colors to bleed together. So I'm still going to be using the same color for this part, only I've made it a much lighter wash. I'm just going to paint the mountains that are in the background, and using the tip of my brush, I'm going to be careful not to paint in those little scalloped snow caps. I did want to create sort of a little shadow detail just to make this a little bit less flat looking. So once I've got that flat wash done, I sort of go back in with a darker mix of the color that I've been using, and you'll see me add in a little bit of a shadow detail around the edges of where the background mountain meets the ones in the foreground. And again, just using the tip of my brush to help define those little scalloped snow caps. Because I want the majority of the pigment to be around the bottom area of where the mountains meet, you can kind of see that I'm pulling the paint downward. So I start at the very top of the mountain, and as I go, I'm just pulling that wet paint down towards where I want it to sort of puddle up a little bit more. And then in that area, I'm able to add in a little bit of a darker pigment. I actually did end up mixing in a little bit of turquoise with the indigo, which is giving it this sort of more turquoisey color. So that's what I have going on here. You don't have to do that, but I just kind of liked the contrast. And by pulling that water down towards the bottom, as I just explained, you're going to see that the pigment is a lot stronger at the bottom, and it just allows the paint to kind of collect there and then blend out and up into the damp area above. I'm just going back in on the first mountain here, just adding a little bit more of a darker pigment around that mountain as well. By the way, in case you forgot, all of the supplies that I use in all of my videos are always listed in the description below. Okay, so moving on to the last background mountain here, I'm just doing the exact same thing, starting at the very top and pulling that paint down towards the bottom. I did go a little bit outside of the area that I wanted to paint, which is why you kind of see a little bit of blooming on that top left edge, but let's just ignore that for now. I like to use the tip of my brush like this to just very lightly move around the paint. And remember, when you're doing wet washes like this, you don't want to load up your brush with so much water. You definitely want both of the areas, the lighter areas and the darker areas, to dry at the same rate. And if you have too much water that you're pulling down towards the bottom, it's going to pool way too much, and then it's going to dry a lot slower than the area at the top. And that's where you start getting all of those kind of cauliflower blooming effects. All right, so I've let those background mountains dry completely, and now I'm gonna begin on the foreground ones. I'm using Davy's Gray for this one, and I do go in and add a tiny bit of indigo to it, just to add a little bit more dimension. I've just added a little bit of indigo there beneath the snow caps to make them pop a little bit more. And then also adding a little bit of indigo along the bottom edge here to make that sort of snowy hill pop a little bit more as well. And then moving on to the other final mountain, I'm doing the exact same thing, basically filling in most of the mountain with Davy's Gray, and then adding a little bit of indigo and spreading that around into the areas that I want more of a shadow effect. The important part of this card is just making sure that each of the elements are completely dry before you move on to the next section. Okay, so let's let this dry completely and then we'll move on to the snowy hills. So now that that's dry, I'm taking Davy's Gray again and I'm just applying that into that little valley area where the hills meet. That's just gonna help separate them a little bit and add a little bit of shadow detail. I'm just really lightly kind of brushing on Davy's Gray to give this white a little bit more of that sort of snowy, gleamy texture, so it's not just plain, vibrant white. I'm adding a little bit of indigo mixed with Davy's Gray into that valley area just to make it stand out a little bit more. And then I'm using that same mixture just to apply it around the top edges of the hills, and I'm just using water and a little bit of Davy's Gray to blend that down into the rest of the hill. I'm trying to be a little bit more loose with the snowy hills, just kind of getting those mixes of colors onto the white area so that it's not just paper showing through. And then using a damp brush just to blend out what I think needs a little softening as I go. And I'm just playing with this part a little bit, adding more color, softening it, adding more, just to kind of get that look that I'm going for. I'm just gonna speed this up with my hair dryer. I like to do this when I don't have puddles of water. It just speeds everything up and makes it go so fast. Okay, with everything completely dry, I'm going to grab my Posca marker and I'm gonna draw in a moon shape at the top here, and then I'm gonna add a couple little clouds. If you don't have a Posca pen or a paint pen, you can also just use a more opaque type of paint, like gouache or white acrylic even. The paint pens just make it a little bit easier to really quickly sketch on something that you want more opaque. I'm just gonna throw a couple little clouds in the sky just to fill out the top area a little bit better and make it a little bit cuter, a little more whimsical. And then I'm just going to define some of those snow caps a little bit more as well, just going over the white paper area with the Posca pen. I switched markers here just because I wasn't really liking how the Posca pen was working. I think I'm kind of running low on it, that's why. So I just grabbed a different one. This one is a Pebeo acrylic marker pen that I was sent from the company. It works really well, pretty much the same as the Posca pens, and they have different size tips that you can use as well. I thought about doing this next part with another black Posca pen, but then I just decided to go in with regular paint and a smaller paintbrush and just create these little trees. I'm keeping it really simple again, and I'm just basically creating one simple vertical line with 3 diagonal lines coming off of it to create little illustrated trees. I wasn't happy with the opacity of the clouds and the moon, so I actually went in with some white gouache and I just went over top of what I already did with the marker. Again, I think that was just because my marker is kind of running low, so this is just another option. And I decided to just go over those snow caps again because why not? One thing you can also do is add in a couple little snowflakes if you want to the top part. I think that would be really cute and give it more of a nighttime scene. Alright, so now I just wanted to add a quick message to my card. So I'm just writing Happy Holidays in fine liner. You can add whatever you want here, or you don't even have to write anything if you don't want to. I'm kind of wondering if I should have just left it blank, but it's done now, can't go back. So let's just peel off the tape and see the finished product. So this is what it looks like. I love the little illustrated look. I think it looks so cute, and I love the monochrome palette. If you guys liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Share the video if you want to help out the channel, and leave a comment below to let me know what you'd like to see next. Also, my brand new book, Watercolor with Me in the Ocean, is officially out in stores, so check that out. Link is going to be below as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.